Thank you, Dennis. So I'm going to start off with a question. Where has your unbridled curiosity gone? When we talk of unbridled curiosity, we're often talking about the spirit of children. But when was the last time you used the term unbridled curiosity for an adult or for yourself? Curiosity is not just a desirable personal trait, but it's a critical human skill that enhances individual and organizational success in the modern workplace. Today, we're exploring curiosity and why it matters in all aspects of our lives. Curiosity is a human superpower that drives learning, creativity, empathy, and connection. Unlike fear and ego, curiosity opens us up. So why does curiosity matter right now? In the 2025 World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, 7 out of the top 10 in-demand skills that we'll need by 2030 will be human skills, including curiosity, which is in the top 6. The world is changing fast. Answers expire quickly. Curiosity keeps us adaptable. At work, it fuels innovation, collaboration, and inclusion. In leadership, it builds trust. I don't assume, I ask. I invite, I include. Curiosity helps us connect with others and build relationships rather than react and judge. So what does this mean for us as leaders today and tomorrow? Leaders need to catalyze change rather than plan for it. There's this notion of contextualized intelligence that this Harvard Business Review article that I read talked about, and the dynamics of needing to catalyze change rather than plan for it because of the ever-changing world we live in right now in the business world. We need to be able to adapt faster than ever. So how do we do that? It's only with an understanding of the most salient information or the most influential players in a given context that executives can figure out how to catalyze change rather than plan for it. Think about skills such as trusting and letting go, distributing authority, leaning on others, curating talent, and building partnerships. The notion of being an explorer, so curiosity in action, being present, being visible, being connected, building relationships, and being a continuous learner. I think it was Paul or someone was talking, or maybe it was Craig talking about people being in their offices and being isolated. That's not going to work in the current and future business environment. We need to stay humble and have the humility to ask questions because it invites others to do the same, and it gets us to a place where we have this as our dynamic and our ability to create the conditions such as belonging, like Paul talked about, is rooted in having the safety and the courage and the humility to ask questions. So what blocks curiosity? For me, it was my unhealthy relationship with vulnerability. For many of us, it can be the fear of looking stupid, judgment, or repercussions, the pressure to perform or produce, the illusion of certainty, cultural norms that reward answers over questions. What I call I call it human conditioning, right? We've been conditioned to that's the way it is. Rewarding answers, who has their hand up, who answers the most questions. What if it's how we ask better questions? What if we look at that a little bit differently? So as I mentioned, in my case, the root was my unhealthy relationship with vulnerability that shut off access to my innate curiosity for decades. I didn't know this until I went through my coaching program about 12 years ago, but that's what actually happened. I was in self-protective mode and believing that vulnerability means weakness, until I challenged this learned belief and chose to reframe this belief to something meaningful and true. That's the world I lived in. The reframe that shifted everything for me, and not just as a transactional thing to do to get through the coaching program I was in, but to allow me to do this work and to be who I had become in the last 12 years, is that vulnerability is human. It's how we connect with one another. And in this aspect of things, it's one of our greatest untapped human strengths, although we've been conditioned to believe otherwise. So what did this reframe of my relationship with vulnerability do? It shifted my mindset and my way of being from judgment to acceptance, from fear to curiosity, prioritizing unlearning my human conditioning and limiting learned beliefs that ironically were often untrue. Uh, reconnected with and shared my voice and aligned my chosen beliefs and values. So I had been disconnected from myself for so long. Just switching this relationship with vulnerability had so many tentacles to it. The most impactful to me was the tentacle that was curiosity, because innately I can remember back to the inner child that had all that joy, all that curiosity, the inquisitiveness had been muted out for decades. And that's what I noticed in the workplace, that too many of us have muted ourselves because of the conditions that exist there are not conducive to belonging and to creating the conditions for people to thrive and bring ideas and innovation. How many of us are living through the lens of limiting beliefs, and how is that shutting off access to the best parts of you? Think of curiosity as your human power tool, your pattern disruptor. When you're in fear or self-doubt or judgment of self or others, when you're facing uncertainty, disrupt that by saying, hold on, wait a minute, and step into non-judgmental curiosity. Who is this inviting me to be? What is this inviting me to see? The disruption, whether it's something along those lines or a breathing practice that was mentioned before, I think it was Tamsin was talking about that, some kind of an interruption to the pattern creates space for shifting our energy, our thought processes, and our practices and habits. So this notion of being a voracious learner that is innate in so many of us from childhood gets muted. How do we shift this to a place where we can, and develop this to a place where we can ask better questions, replace judgment with inquiry, and model not knowing? I don't know it, but I'd love to find out kind of approach, rather than thinking we as leaders have to know all the answers. What we're going to explore together today is the business impact of curiosity. As I mentioned, the World Economic Forum had 7 out of 10 of the skills that are going to be in demand, that are in demand right now, and it's going to be increasingly so come 2030, are human skills. And that's interesting. And the other top 3 are the ones you would expect: AI, network, technology-related skills. But 7 out of 10 are human. And as Paul was talking about earlier, and it was laced throughout several of the presentations, it's our relationship with human factors and how we think about that that enables us to open up and go to the place of being uncomfortable, where we might be uncomfortable in terms of sharing what we don't know and living from this place of having to know everything and clinging to what's comfortable for us. That may have gotten us where we are today, but it's not going to get us where we need to go tomorrow. And a lot of this is rooted in personal challenge with our human factors, personal challenge with not modeling and inviting curiosity, bringing new ideas in, thinking from different perspectives, which connects back to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I'll make the case that that order is actually needs to be flipped, and we need to lead with belonging, with the outcome, diversity, although we've been conditioned to and been exposed to it in the reverse order. Actually, what needs to happen is to start with belonging.